This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Floods killed 12 people in western Uganda as heavy rains continue in the region. Turkey and Libya maritime deal rings alarms in Egypt. And how women in Africa are balancing childcare and income generation. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm live from Nairobi, and for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. In business, Tunisia's International Art Exhibition offers women opportunities to foreign markets. And in sports, Anthony Joshua reclaims heavyweight titles following unanimous decision win over Andy Ruiz. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. We start in Uganda, where floods have killed at least 12 people in the country. The heavy floods affected 12 areas in the country's west. Several houses were swept away. Roads were blocked in remote locations, and the communities are separated from the rest of Uganda by the Rwenzori Mountains. A search and rescue operation has been launched. However, the rain is hampering communication on the ground. The country has been experiencing heavy rainfall. At least 20 people were killed last week as a result of floods and mudslides. While East African countries are experiencing unusually heavy rainfall and flooding, and this is primarily due to the weather phenomenon that is the Indian Ocean Dipole, also known as the Indian El Nino. The UN humanitarian agency OCHA says that homes, infrastructure, and livelihoods have been destroyed. Let's take a look at the latest numbers.
The annual short rains in Kenya ordinarily last from October to December. But this year, they've been exceptionally heavy. The county of West Pokot saw 72 killed by a landslide that buried their homes. In Djibouti, the equivalent of 2 years of rainfall fell in just a single day. The ensuing flash floods have affected up to 250,000 people. This includes 9 that have been killed. Landslides in Rwanda have left dozens of residents homeless, and at least 16 houses have been destroyed in the northwestern district of Musanze. Meanwhile, in neighboring Tanzania, 14 regions are likely to be affected by a 2-week bad weather warning. This has been issued by the country's meteorological agency. Over the border in Burundi, landslides have killed at least 38 in the northwestern region of Cibitoke. The death toll is likely to rise since scores are reportedly missing. The extreme weather has been hampering effective recovery efforts. Across East Africa, more than 2.8 million have been affected by the heavy rainfall. The United Nations warns that the risk of diseases like cholera is rising daily. Going forward, the rains are likely to persist into December and to intensify in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
Well, weather experts say that what we are witnessing is in part due to the Indian Ocean Dipole. It is also referred to as the Indian Ocean's El Nino. Experts say that this year's dipole is the strongest in 6 decades. This year is a positive dipole event, and that's what's taking place at the moment. This means higher than average temperatures in the western part of the Indian Ocean and the opposite in the east. The cooler temperatures result in less rainfall hitting Australia. The country has been dealing with devastating bushfires. The warmer temperatures causes more rainfall to hit eastern Africa. Ethiopia, Uganda, South Sudan are among the countries affected. Flash floods and landslides have already killed 300 people. The UN says weather events have affected around 2.8 million people. And to Kenya now, the death toll from a collapsed residential building has risen to 5. At least 36 people have been rescued. The Kenyan Red Cross says it believes 23 remain unaccounted for. The cause of the collapse remains unknown. CGTN's Robert Nagila has more.
More than 30 hours after a residential building collapsed in Nairobi, Rescuers are yet to reach the ground floor of the 6-story apartment block as the death toll climbed overnight.
We have lost 5. We have been able to identify 4. And we cannot for now give out the names because we have not contacted their loved ones.
At least 36 people have been rescued and taken to hospital. 19 people were treated and discharged. Located about 100 meters from the disaster site, relatives and friends of the missing have been gathering at the tracing desk to provide information that may assist rescuers.
We'll take in their details and get as much biodata as possible about what kind of clothes these people are wearing, what their ages are, the sizes, so that as the rescue team is going on, then they know what to look for.
Among those missing are the niece and nephew of Boz Mukulu.
The missing are a son to my brother and a daughter to my brother. And the son is called Lenson Litiema, and the daughter is called Sharon Mkuna.
The family is still clinging to hope the 2 teenagers will be found alive.
We have been waiting, and we still have a hope that they will come out safely and alive.
With each passing hour, hope of finding more people alive diminishes. But the fact that they're not using heavy equipment much is an indication that rescuers are still of the belief that more survivors could still be found in the rubble. Robert Nagela, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
All right, let's now cross live to our very own correspondent, Daniel Arap Moy, who is at the scene of the incident. Daniel, thank you for taking time out to speak to us here on Africa Live. Grim scenes there. Tell us more, though, about the rescue and recovery efforts that are going on. Daniel.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. There's still a lot of hope from the people that had their loved ones trapped in this building that collapsed here in Tassi. And the authorities are doing everything possible to ensure that they try to find those that could still be alive, if there's any, to say the least. But efforts are underway. Rescue operations are still ongoing here at the site where there was this tragic event that happened here end of last week. But the officers here are not giving up yet, because they still hope that maybe we could still salvage a few, those that are expected to still be alive, but operations are still ongoing. Now, from yesterday's figure, there were around about 5 people that were reportedly dead, and today we are receiving the news that 2 more people have been found dead, so that increases the number to 7. And the officers here, KDF officials and engineers, are not giving up. They're doing their very best to ensure that they get to the bottom of this debris, to find out if they can still get any that is left alive. But the operation is not going, and also what we have seen here at the site, the equipment to try to help rescue those that are still trapped underneath has increased. We're seeing more cranes have been deployed here. They're now about 4 in total. So you can see that the government is doing its best to try to ensure that those that are waiting for their loved one will still have some sort of hope to ensure that they can still find their loved ones that were trapped here alive. And of course, the number of those that were rescued continues, of course, to grow as well. But we hope that there are still more that can be found. But of course, there are also some challenges due to the heavy rains. It's been raining here since last week. So even right now, as we're here, it's still drizzling. So despite the heavy rainfall, the officers are not giving up. They're still trying to give in their best to ensure that they come to the bottom line, to the last of what could have happened here.
All right, Daniel Arap Moy, thank you so much for bringing us that update. This is a story we shall be following closely. Thank you so much. Moving on to Ethiopia, and the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, says her administration will continue working closely with Africa to find lasting solutions to illegal migration. The EU continues to raise concerns over migrants who risk their lives to cross the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe. Von der Leyen is in Ethiopia for an official visit to the country and the African Union Commission. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who was elected in July this year, says she discussed illegal migration from Africa to Europe when she met the AU Commission chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat.
Together, we can find answers. Together, we can find and build solutions that work for Africa and for Europe alike.
An October UN report shows 1,970 migrants from 39 African countries in 13 European nations all declared that they had arrived in Europe through irregular means. Europe has been funding job creation projects in some African countries with the aim to reduce the number of illegal migration attempts to Europe through the Mediterranean Sea. Ethiopia is one such country. In January, the European Union gave Ethiopia over $55 million to support job creation projects. Today, the European Commission President has met with Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and extended a package worth over $187 million, of which $11 million will go towards job creation. The African Union says beyond just illegal migration, issues like youth education and employment, health projects, peace and security issues, as well as good governance are areas where the two unions could continue focusing on. They agreed to this when they met in 2017.
The fact that the newly elected president of the European Commission chose that her first visit outside of Europe would be to Addis and to the African Union, I think is an illustration of the importance of the strategic partnership, and also ahead of our commission-to-commission meetings this year, which will culminate in the AU-EU summit.
The two unions are set to meet in February 2020 in Brussels to review their agreements since 2017. Coletta Njohi, CGTN. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. We'll see you on the other side of the break with more news. Here's a look at what's ahead. Turkey and Libya maritime deal rings alarms in Egypt. How women in Africa are balancing childcare and income generation.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Libya's government of national accord and Turkey have sparked tensions in the East Mediterranean region with a water border agreement. President Erdogan and the head of the GNA, Faisal al-Sarraj, have signed an MOU which affects the water border agreement between Greece, Cyprus, and Egypt. A diplomatic row has followed, with Greece expelling the Libyan ambassador on Friday. CGTN's Adel Al-Maroui has more.
Turkey and Libya's internationally recognized government of national accord have signed security and water border agreements. With it, the two countries recognize a joint maritime border in the Mediterranean Sea. The agreement outraged Egypt, Cyprus, and Greece.
Egypt, Greece, and Cyprus have drawn the water borders between them based on the UN's Sea Border Agreement. The MOU between Turkey and GNA ignores that. That will definitely infuse more crises in the Mediterranean.
For Ankara, it's great to get recognition from another country to its increasing interests in the East Mediterranean.
Turkey benefits greatly from this political agreement. It enables Turkey to expand its influence in the East Mediterranean and North Africa. Turkey gets rights to search for oil and gas in sovereign territories, and it also benefits militarily and economically in Libya.
El Sarraj's eastern rivals have been in an 8-month-long non-stop pursuit to seize his capital, Tripoli. The agreement gives the GNA a great opportunity to forge a deeper partnership with Turkey. With its armed support, Sarraj's backing militias have been able to push LNA forces back.
This MOU aims to give legitimacy to the flow of Turkish arms to the militias backing Fayez al-Sarraj. Therefore, it is complicating the field battles and diminishing hopes for political solutions in Libya.
Diplomatic tension have already begun. A war of statements between the countries in dispute have followed the announcement of the MOUs. It escalated last Friday, with Greece expelling the Libyan ambassador.
In the near future, it doesn't seem that violence will fade in Libya. The Turkish arms has spread the areas of conflicts. It's empowering the Misrata militias and puts many civilians there under threat. Both Libyan parties are trying to justify their stance to the international community. Both of them are in a race to appeal to Washington, which they believe will help them get more international support.
This Mediterranean row will only make regional powers hold stronger to the parties they support in the Libyan conflict, each betting on the slim chance that when their allies win this civil war, that will help tip the scale in the battle for oil and gas in the East Mediterranean. But so far, this approach has been only fueling the conflict in Libya. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And to Rwanda now, where delegates at the just concluded International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa have urged African leaders to increase domestic funding on health care in order to keep HIV programs running. This, they say, would accelerate efforts to end the HIV epidemic in Africa. CGTN's Wilkester Nyabwa reports.
After a week of intense discussions, the International Conference on AIDS and STIs is drawing to an end. But the work is only just beginning. During the sessions, delegates shared news of the gains made in their countries in efforts to attain an Africa free of HIV and AIDS. Globally, there are 37.9 million people living with HIV. The majority are African. In recent years, governments have committed to ensuring that at least 90% of persons with HIV know their status and access treatment. But large gaps still remain in the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of HIV. Adolescent girls, for example, still make up a large section of new infections.
We need to empower our girls and young women and their partners with the information, skills, services, and self-efficacy to make responsible sexual and reproductive health choices and to act on them for HIV prevention and from unintended pregnancies and STIs.
Countries which have had success have employed strategies such as self-testing for HIV, advocating for voluntary male medical circumcision, and providing services to key populations which include the transgender community, sex workers, prisoners, and men who have sex with men. Scientific advancements such as drugs to prevent HIV infection and new antiretroviral drug combinations have also changed the course of the epidemic. However, funding these services still remains a major concern.
Unless we increase our domestic funding, we are not going to achieve the targets that we set for ourselves, either in 2020 or in 2030. We mustn't forget the Abuja commitment of 15% of the budget of your nations to the health of the nation.
And with all the initiatives in place as the world searches for a cure, it is this one piece that could make a major difference.
My hope is that we take the ideas and discussions made here this week and turn them into actions.
The commitments have been made. What remains now is to put in the work so that when delegates assemble yet again for the next International Conference on AIDS and STIs to be held in 2021, they will be able to review the results of this gathering. Wilkes Anyabwa, CGTN, in Kigali, Rwanda.
Nursing mothers in Nigeria are having a hard time caring for their kids and running their full-time jobs. While some have a good family support system to help them with childcare, others oftentimes have to rely on daycare centers. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam brings us a report on the daily struggles of nursing mothers in the West African nation.
9-month-old Ivana getting set for school. But this isn't her first day. She's been attending daycare since she was just 3 months old. Her mother, Blessing, had a hard time making the decision of where to keep her while at work. With her demanding job as a university lecturer and limited options, Blessing had to take out time to source a place that would put her mind at rest while at work.
I prefer a daycare than having a maid or a nanny at home with my baby. That's the truth. But of course, not just any daycare. Like at Tradestone now, if you go there, you can see that. In fact, I even like the way the place is. The place is open. If I can come in anytime, I can easily see your baby. It's not like they are locked up somewhere, you know. And so I just like it. I think the place is okay, so I'm comfortable with it.
The children here, we care for them. We feed them properly. We teach them the speaking skills, the potty training. We train them how to use their potties. We also make them feel at home. We have good hands that handles the children. We don't beat the children. We don't spank them. We make sure that they are safe and the hygiene, everything is safe about them.
There's a growing demand for caregivers as more women veer into full-time jobs. Children of working mothers like Blessing start here as early as 3 months old. That's because most employers give nursing mothers a 3-month-long maternity leave. And for mothers like Blessing, that is not enough.
But ideally, 6 months, nothing less than 6 months should be fine. If they give 1 year, it's okay. But nothing less than 6 months for me is okay, because the child, after, from 0 to 6 months, we are advised to do exclusive breastfeeding. After that, the child can eat anything, can stay with anybody, basically.
Nearly 46% of Nigeria's female population are part of the country's labor force, most of them nursing mothers. Hence, the growing need for professional services like childcare, which is a delicate sector requiring passionate professionals. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
South African nursing mothers, too, are facing challenges. When they need to go to work, their worry is who will care for their children. When mothers are assured their little ones are safe and happy, they are more productive at work and less stressed. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Children in informal settlements lack access to quality early childhood development services. Approximately 3.8 million children live in dire poverty in South Africa, with the gap between rich and poor widening. For those who broke the cycle of poverty and can now afford quality preschool education, the difference is evident.
My name is Bonto Maduna. I grew up in a township in Pretoria called Mabopane. I went to a preschool there called Leraton Creche, needing lots of facilities and donations in order to help the parents and the children to reach their better heights. I wanted something different for my children because I've been back to Mabopane where I grew up, and I loved my childhood there. But when I've come back as an adult to show my husband and my children where I grew up, a lot of my friends that are still there are not where I'm at. And that's really painful and heartbreaking to see.
The most obvious difference between private and informal settlement preschools is cost. Children in private daycare receive one-on-one personalized teaching and stimulating learning tools.
We definitely as a school have benefits because we're able to cater for less in a class. Which is extremely important because it's also more one-on-one attention. In an environment where you're looking at 30 to 50 children in a class with one, you're not going to get that one-on-one attention. And I think that is the unfortunate reason, is that they haven't got that actual individual care that is needed for them to grow to their full potential.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to education, despite where they're born.
So no matter what circumstance they are born in, they've got a right to be something and to be there. And with given the correct materials, guidance and care, they can get there. And for me, it's very important that we as a country need to fight for this, because each child is not asked to be brought up in different circumstances. So it is very important because it is our future.
My dream is for every South African child to be given an equal opportunity. And I think we can all do something to contribute to that. Children sometimes come to school on an empty stomach and they can't learn, they can't concentrate. And I think we all need to do our part to help the children of South Africa to reach the highest heights that they deserve.
The South African government has made a number of strides in addressing the scourge of poverty that continues to affect more than 60% of children. However, a considerable number of children still don't get adequate early childhood development services. Judy Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, for more on this, we are joined in studio by Burl Itendi, founder and director of Bees Haven Daycare in Kenya. Burl, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. First things first, talk about the situation here in Africa. We do know that there is a problem in balancing childcare and income generation that is experienced by mothers all over the world. But what is the situation like here in Africa?
I can say that given a choice, most, if not all mothers would resign and stay home to bring up their children. But you know, we don't have that luxury of staying home and bringing up our children. Because gone are the days when our parents or rather fathers would stay, or rather mothers would stay at home and fathers would go to work and still be able to bring up or rather manage a home single-handedly using one salary. Right now we also have to go out there so that we can come and team up and bring up a family comfortably. So mothers have been forced to go to work and leave their children in the care of other people whom they really do not have an idea of their background.
What's happening with the support system of the young nieces and the young nephews in Africa?
Young nieces and nephews, yes. That's when you can have a young niece and nephew from home to come and look after your child. But then again, are they trained? Are they well enough? Do they know more about children? In the daycares or something. You know, in the daycares, the staff are trained. They do know all that they intend to know. We have ECD-trained teachers or other trained staff to take care of the children in the daycares. And if you bring a niece or a nephew or even just any other person back from home to bring them back, where you stay and to take care of your children, you find that you'll not even be comfortable wherever you are. That's why we see many mothers going up and about looking for CCTV cameras to install them in their homes. That shows that they do not have trust in whoever they've left at home with their children. Why should we go to work and still be 50-50 about what we've left back at home? But with the daycare, you see everything is taken care of. You don't have to worry about your children. They have all the supports system they need out there. They have other children to help them develop. But in Africa, we don't have that luxury because we only break for 3 months maternity leave. Yet we're expected to breastfeed our children for 6 months. You can imagine going back to work when your child is about 3 months old. You see, you expose them to, let me say, early infections because you compromise their immunity because you're forced to wean them earlier than they're supposed to be weaned.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about healthcare in low-income areas. There's a question of lack of regulation, of adequate regulation. Talk to us more about that.
The regulation in Kenya, okay, let me say, it's not adhered to, especially when dealing with daycares. Because let me say in the slums, or rather in the upmarket slums, in the slums, we do not have the regulations to put the daycares up and running in the best way they should be. Like you may find the daycares in those areas, you may find just one room with one aged woman having to take care of about 20 children. And you see, there's really not enough space for the children to run around and all that. There's not that experience to get out there and learn to develop things and learn to new things about growing up and having all that fun. There's no hygiene. There's barely enough or rather adequate lighting in these areas. So you find that most people in the slum areas do not have the choice because they have their income, the generating activities or rather whatever they earn monthly or daily is very, very low. It cannot even get them that luxury of taking the children to well-managed daycare out there.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, finally, you run a successful daycare center. You're a director.
Yes, yes.
Share with us, before we let you go, some of the lessons other directors could perhaps take from your experience.
I'd like to say that before you open a daycare, you should have a passion for children. Daycare is not just about running the business and earning a living out of it. Without a passion, you will not head anywhere. I can tell people out there, or rather daycare owners out there, or people aspiring to be daycare owners, if you do not have a passion for kids, and you have a thought of opening a daycare, just hold that thought, because it's much more than just looking after children. You have to have a passion for kids, because they tend to stretch your patience, all that, and you have to really put yourself in their shoes.
All right.
Yes.
Burl, Itini, let's leave it there for now. We can definitely feel and hear your passion. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Live.
I thank you very much.
Well, you're watching Africa Live. We've got a lot more coming your way after the break. Don't go away. In business, Tunisia International Art Exhibition offers women opportunities to foreign markets.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. South African Airways has been placed under business rescue, but will this struggling airline be rescued? While many welcome the president's decision to place SAA into voluntary rescue, some are concerned it's not the answer to saving this airline that was once Africa's best. CGTN's Richard Nta takes a look.
Les Mattison has been appointed as business rescue practitioner for SAA. He has over 35 years' experience in the business and is known for getting companies back on track. The process can be carried out in a few different ways. Mattison has yet to confirm the plan of action.
What essentially will happen is he will consult with the stakeholders. He will try to find finance. And then his main role is to set up a business rescue plan, and he will then, that plan is to be voted on by creditors and shareholders in a business rescue adoption meeting. If it is approved, then the business rescue practitioner will proceed to implement the plan.
Option one is just an immediate shutdown where you simply close all your doors. The second option is to then undertake what we call a liquidation process. And in the liquidation process, you then just sum up all your assets, you sell them, convert them to cash, and pay whoever you can pay. And whoever doesn't get paid, well, that's the end of the journey for them.
SAA owes money to a number of companies, including the banks. Its debt is in the region of $1.5 billion. But under business rescue, creditors will have to wait, employees too.
The most significant effect is the moratorium on the claims of creditors. And what that means is that creditors can't enforce their claims against SAA at the moment or for the duration of the business rescue. Employees will still be expected to fulfill their duties, but their salaries, like every other creditor, is not enforceable at this point. During the business rescue.
Mattison has a strong track record, but saving an airline is complex.
People that have bought tickets are probably not at risk. The problem, unfortunately, is that people are now going to not buy the tickets. One of the possibilities is that it'll never fly again. It becomes difficult for you to buy your long-term tickets. So business rescue practitioner is working into a business where there are no revenues that are going to be coming in. So it's a matter of him trying to manage the costs. And once you manage the costs, ask yourself the question, how do I convince people to start buying tickets in this airline again?
Companies, they are often placed too late into business rescue, and the business rescue practitioner can only work with what he's been introduced to. And so what should ideally happen is that as soon as the company becomes financially distressed, it is placed in business rescue, but that is not always the case. And that often has a detrimental effect on the business rescue process.
Not every company gets saved under business rescue. Only time will tell with SAA. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, Ethiopia's top advisor to the country's prime minister, Arakebe Ekwebe, says China's industrial policy has helped transform Ethiopia's economy significantly. Speaking at the China-Africa Business Development Forum held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Arakebe further pointed that Ethiopia has taken important lessons from China, making it achieve remarkable progress in Africa. Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing economies across the continent, with a huge hard currency earning and employment opportunities.
Ethiopia has focused on China in addition to East Asian countries to learn on industrialization, on export promotion, and in policy approach. One of the most important policy lessons we learn from China is its pragmatic policy, its pragmatic approach and experimenting policies. And Ethiopian policymakers have access and have enjoyed learning from China.
Well, a Nigerian entrepreneur is turning the nutritious soybean into a powder. The country's domestic production of soybean has been rising. CGTN's Deji Badmus went to find out how Joseph Akapochi-Mora hopes to find success in the industry. Let's take a look.
In this small room is the production house of Nirefaf soybean powder. Outside the building, Joseph sits on a stool, sorting out the dry soybeans, which is the first step towards making the flour. Afterwards, he fries it slightly on a gas stove before proceeding to the grinding mill, where the bean is crushed into powdery form. When that is done, the smooth blend is then stored in an airtight container and carefully branded. Joseph started his soybean powder business after losing a close friend and a child due to improper nutrition. For this reason, he says the primary purpose of his business is saving lives with the provision of affordable, healthy food options. And he chose soybean because of its nutritional value.
The first thing is, how can we make every family have a very quality meal on their table that can save lives? One beauty of soya beans is that it helps to sharpen the memory. Most of the problems our age people have today is this memory failure, stroke issues related to problems in their brain and all that. Soya beans can actually help you to avert that if you start taking it on time.
All the materials Joseph uses for his production come from natural sources, and so safety is of utmost concern. And to ensure optimum quality control, he carefully selects the farmers he purchases raw materials from.
We must be sure that the storage is proper. We don't use any soya that is stored with all these chemicals, all these things that are causing poisons everywhere, So that makes us very selective in our marketing.
Apart from the challenge of funding, not many people have fully come to terms with consuming natural products like this. And the struggle to remain relevant in a market full of chemically processed foods is something Joseph has had to constantly deal with.
Everything you see in our package must be 100% soya. That actually was a very big challenge to us. We had the issue of acceptability because of the uniqueness of our products. Soya bean is a very sensitive plant. It's very sensitive. It hardly meshes up with other things. So when you put additives to it, sometimes it has a way of repelling, and it reduces the potency of the products.
Nigeria produces over 580 tons of soybean annually, with the bulk of it exported raw. But Joseph's startup is adding value to the crop with the hope of making more profit. His profit for now is not massive, he says, but he's forging ahead to get more people in Nigeria consume his product, believing that someday his startup will hit it big and move on from its current modest state. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Asaba, Nigeria.
A heated race took place in Senegal's capital, Dakar. For 2 kilometers, waders tested their balancing skills. Over 100 participants battled it out for a first-place finish. The event was organized by the Association of Hotel and Restaurant Professionals in partnership with Senegal's Tourism Promotion Agency. Let's hear how the judges chose the winner.
We are looking for dexterity, agility, and elegance. Each participant will have on a tray a bottle of water and a half-filled glass. If any time the glass falls on the tray, a point is deducted. If the bottle falls on the tray, 2 points are deducted. If the bottle or the glass falls on the ground, you're disqualified.
This is the first time participating in a competition like this. It gives me the chance to get to know my colleagues better.
And in Tunisia, the International Women's Art Exhibition 2019 is currently underway in the country's capital, Tunis. The event is organized by the National Chamber of Business Women in collaboration with women's groups and the National Handicrafts Office. CGTN's Adnan Shawaushi has more.
Feminine Art International 2019 shed light on the production and creations of Tunisian craftswomen and businesswomen.
We are supporting talented women and encouraging creativity. This meeting promotes women's creations in different fields.
Handmade items of all shapes and colors, tableware, jewelry, leather goods, decoration, clothing, accessories, and local products were displayed at the headquarters of the Tunisian Confederation of Industry, Trade and Handicrafts.
The diversity of products is fascinating. It reflects the art of handicrafts, which is part of the Tunisian cultural heritage.
The event is also charitable. The funds collected will be used to help Tunisian associations like the Arc-en-Ciel Down Syndrome Children's Association, SOS Villages, the Aziza Othmana Pediatric Cancer Service.
We are trying to raise as much money possible for women and children who in the local society, so to raise money for Tunisians. But we are an international women's group. I think our members, we have over 500 members from many, many different countries in the world.
The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development (EBRD) has supported 1,000 enterprises in Tunisia in the past 4 years, including 20% owned by women, by means of $22 million. EBRD and other banks are providing a technical assistance implemented in training, counseling and coaching actions for female entrepreneurs and craftswomen. According to the Tunisian Confederation of Industry, Trade and Handicrafts, Feminine Art International 2019 is an opportunity for women entrepreneurs seeking to improve their competitiveness, reinforce their organizational capacities, and benefit from a better assistance on the foreign markets. Adnan Shawaushi, CGTN, Tunis.
And we're not done just yet. The news continues on Africa Live. Here's a look at what's ahead. Former Lord's Resistance Army abductees in Uganda tell their stories through the Stories of Girls in War art exhibition.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Former Lord's Resistance Army abductees in Uganda are telling their harrowing stories. By doing so, they hope to fight the stigma in their communities. The art exhibition, dubbed Stories of Girls in War, was organized by the Refugee Law Project and the Canadian Human Rights Museum. CGTN's Hilary Ayesega reports.
A skirt riddled with bullets, a constant reminder to Evelyn Amoni about the LRA war. She was abducted at the age of 12.
That's the skirt I was wearing in 2005 when I returned. When we were returning, we were shot at, and the person that was shooting at me told me they shot at me 11 bullets, but none of those bullets caught me.
Amoni is a former wife to Joseph Kony, the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army. But as she struggles to put the past behind, she faces stigma in her community.
When they want to get married, it's always difficult because once they realize you're formally abducted, getting married becomes a problem.
By sharing her life experience, Evelyn hopes to inspire many other people who are still struggling to recover from effects of the war. The women are showcasing items used while in captivity. They include a grinding stone, a school sweater, and drawings that depict life in the jungles. Organizers plan to take this exhibition to other parts of Africa.
We do want the exhibit to travel, not only in Uganda, but we want it to travel to Sierra Leone, to the DRC, in other countries where women and girls have had similar experience and want to have conversations about their experience and about human rights in their own context.
Amoni believes speaking out on issues that affect them could help end stigma in her community. Hilary Ayesega, CGTN, Kampala.
Guess what? We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Let's take a sneak peek at the headlines. In sports, Anthony Joshua reclaims heavyweight titles following unanimous decision win over Andy Ruiz.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find